All right, we're back. It is the new and improved Bring Your Own Security Radio. I am your host, Dave, the IT guy, CISSP, certified ethical hacker, encryption specialist, incident handler, and a whole bunch of other LMNOPs. But none of that matters because what matters is that we're bringing your security up to par. Over the past 5 years that I've been doing this show and on iHeartRadio on the AM and FM radio dials, we've had a lot of conversation from vendors, supposed experts in this field, actual black hats, malware people, and others. We've had white hats like myself. We've had veteran government hackers who have remained anonymous. And we've just had some fun with myself and other hosts. But rarely do we just sit back and talk about the day-to-day of what we're doing in the field and how we're doing it and the things that we're forgetting, things that we should look at, and how in the hell are we going to get all of that stuff done in maybe a 40-hour week, even a 50-hour work week. You almost have to live it, breathe it, eat it. But does that leave time for us and for our families and to just not burn out? And that's definitely one of the bigger things that's going on in this industry right now. People are changing jobs every 3 to 5 years. Not everybody, but often. Until you get to a higher level of such a high level of pay that, of course, you don't want to leave. But you go somewhere and you feel unappreciated. You feel that nobody's listening to you, that whoever is making the decisions doesn't seem to know what they're doing, or they just don't seem to care about what they're doing or how well they're doing it. It's all about the bottom line and the almighty dollar. But let's talk about some stuff that's happening real world, at least for me, day to day. Let's find a common ground where we can say, man, I had that problem too, but here's another problem I found. Come share those with me. I'd love for you to come hit me up at BYOS Radio on Twitter and tell me some of the day-to-day things that you're finding that others aren't talking about. Vulnerabilities or attack vectors or other things that are happening from a security perspective that you're wondering why everybody else isn't paying attention to. I certainly would love to hear your stories and retweet them and share them out. So please, at BYOS Radio on Twitter. Some of mine, so to be fair, we use some automated vulnerability assessment tools. We use a very well-known corporate level tool. I don't want to give things away, but you set up your scans, your vulnerability scans, and you wait for the scans to end, which could take hours or days depending on the size of the environment. Or you set up your reporting. So you hit your scan, then you hit your reports. Now, my environment happens to span 2 continents. So with over 100,000 people and more than 15,000 devices around North America, our scanning and reporting vulnerability assessments take a long time. Oftentimes, when you look at CVSS scores and other properties that tell you how vulnerable you are, there are times that we find a computer with a score in the millions. It's just amazing. Of course, we all know the common ones: Adobe, Firefox. That's probably the 2 biggest ones. Java, of course. My gosh, I could forget that one, of course. So, but we're talking about software remediation. Okay, everybody's on top of that. Get your patching. Keep your stuff. Get rid of things that you don't need to do. But a lot of folks are forgetting hardware remediation, patching their processors. Raise your hand out there if you knew that just in the past 2 months, Intel has released 16 vulnerability warnings with updates to patch your processor, to patch other things that Intel controls. How many of you know that there are Bluetooth patches out there right now for every operating system you can think of? Android, iOS, Windows, Linux, and wireless. I can't wait to talk about that one. That one's going to be fun in just a few minutes. So, did you know that most organizations, maybe you work for one of them, maybe you're a contractor who doesn't patch because your customers won't give you enough time to do the work you need to do. They want you to react only to whatever bad thing their antivirus tells them is happening, but they don't let you be proactive to stop things from happening before they have to be reactive. That's the point that I'm trying to get our environment to, is that we are proactive and not taking a reactive posture. And to my organization's credit, we are very aggressively pursuing that. Now, of course, with such a big environment, we have multiple divisions, entirely different corporations under our major corporate umbrella. So telling company A that does this type of industry to match the requirements for company B and C that do two other type of industries, and making sure that everybody's across the board has a level set, a baseline, if you were, is tough. That's a tough road to hoe at times. So sometimes you got to take them in smaller bites, either at an organizational level, and sometimes even smaller by location. But things patching, so not software. Forget about your operating system for a minute. Forget about all of your different pieces of software that you have installed on your computers and on your servers. Let's think about the things, the RAM, the processors, the different drivers and firmware that go your BIOS, right? Well, of course, that's software, but still a little different. But let's think about all those things, and how often does your organization patch that stuff? How often do you guys look for that stuff? Do you even have any type of vulnerability capability or organizational path to even recognizing that you have those type of problems? Interesting question. I can tell you that for the longest time, we didn't, but we do now. And it's very interesting, the things that we're finding in our environment that haven't been touched since early 2000s, maybe 2005, 2010. Of course, some of the newer stuff that we're just now buying is newer, but you can have some other devices floating around that, what if you have, if you're in an industrial type of organization and you're using ladder machine learning things, and those PLCs indirectly connect to your Windows network, I bet those things haven't been updated in ages, right? And are they an attack vector? It really depends. Of course, like everything in the IT field, the answer is it depends. So keep an eye on those kind of things. Now, another fun vector that's been battered around the industry for a long time, so it's not new, but the fact that it's still really not being paid attention to or taken seriously is astonishing, and that's printers. Printers are a great attack platform. They have enough storage on those, the bigger printers, to hold malware. So when a hacker or another entity, insider attack maybe, gets into your environment, instead of your firewalls protecting you from inbound threats, you talk about malware having to talk out to the internet to get its updates and grab its things. What if those bad things, rootkits and other things, are being hosted on your printer's memory? How many people in your organization can print? All of them, right? Mostly, usually, in most organizations, everybody has access to more than one printer, usually. If that's the case, that means your printer has access back to your computer in some way, shape, or form. Therefore, if a computer is somehow infected internally, your firewall doesn't protect you because it's not going outside to get its updates for the malware. It's inside. Now, you might start seeing file extraction, right, going out. If somebody's trying to send files outbound or send data outbound, you might have some data loss capabilities to see that activity and to stop it. But if you're not that mature of an organization from a security perspective, that's a very easy way for your data to get nailed and be exfiltrated or cryptojacked in some way, whether it's even the little bit of power that printers put out or use. They can't even be cryptojacked for a crypto mining type of attack. I've seen it done as a proof of concept. I've not seen that in the wild, although I have seen a printer used as a launching platform for an attack. I've seen it used as an internal denial of service source. So it can be done. It has been done. Is it happening to you? How many of you scan your printers from a vulnerability / malware scanning point of view? Probably less than 5% of you just nodded your head or raised your hand. Again, we were one of those less than 5%, but we're not anymore. One of the other interesting pieces about the whole printer platform thing is that HP and Kyocera are the only two vendors who have worked with the U.S. and NIST to get into their platforms so that they are accounted for in the security doctrine. So when you're talking about mapping to NIST objectives, and if you're, maybe you're a CIS 20 organization or NIST or any other number of organizations that use different frameworks, NIST is recognizing HP and Kyocera. Their engineers have worked around with the government to the extent of, we're putting security software on our devices. We are able to notice weird things happening on the network when it comes to our devices. So if somebody were to try to use a printer as a platform to hold malware, their security systems could theoretically detect that as an anomaly happening. So if you are interested in more robust, you might want to check those out. But of course, you have to have a more current firmware or updates running those type of printers. If you're not using HP or Kyocera, then you most likely don't have good security platform already embedded into the system. So you have to figure out, how am I going to harden my printers, right? So that's just one in a nutshell. But the printer platform is a great way. If you're a pen tester and you really want to kind of go mess with your customer, that is a great way. On your first day or second day, as you're doing your basic paperwork, kind of getting the lay of the land, one of the things that you can do as a proof of concept is take a fake. Of course, it's fake. You're not going to do it for real, but show that you can implant something on a printer and show that something could end up on a computer within their environment, and show that, document that, take screenshots, hash files, etc., so that you can prove it's what you did as quote unquote a hacker during your pen test, and scare the bejesus out of them, because nobody pays attention to printers. A couple other things that came out in 2018 that are most likely overlooked, and it kind of depends. Again, everything depends in the IT security field. But there was this thing called Bleeding Bit, which was, I've got it written down here, a CVE 2018-16986. And this was a Bluetooth remote code execution flaw, which was embedded in 7 Cisco and 5 Meraki access point models. So what basically happens is the attacker will send some malicious Bluetooth low energy broadcast messages as advertising packets. So, it's advertising, hey, here I am, and your device, whether it be iOS, Android, Linux, or Windows. Says, hey, wireless, how you doing? Bluetooth, hey, let's connect. Of course, it's usually mobile phones, but many laptops, of course, have Bluetooth these days. As long as that Bluetooth is turned on, it doesn't even have to pair with the device. It doesn't have to have user interaction. It effectively triggers an overflow of the critical memory, and depending on the type of device, it allows a hacker to corrupt that memory, gain access into that operating system of that device, and then create a backdoor or just execute some code one time, or try to create a persistent environment. So, and then there was a second one along the same lines. Get that one written down too. CVE 2018-7080 affected multiple Aruba access points, including the entire 300 series. And effectively, the researchers that brought that one out says they can attack an access point, install a completely new and different version of the firmware. So that's interesting. How many of you now? A lot of the wireless controllers, of course, reach out to home base, say, "Hey, I got an update, right?" Download the updates. But a lot of organizations say, "Man, I don't want it to automatically do that. I want to control it. I want to make sure it's not going to mess up." Like if you're in a hospital or a large college environment, you might have VoIP phones or other IoT things, and you're worried that, hey, automatic updates, we've all heard the horror stories. So turn off those automatic updates. I want to manage those. But with the amount of updating you have to do for software, for your servers and your desktops and Adobe and Java and Flash, even though it's all going away, how many of you think about, oh, crap, what kind of access points do I have? I need to update those for Bluetooth, right? You might look at other pieces. So just take a few minutes. If you're using Cisco or Meraki, if you're using, the Arubas, multiple access point models, but the entire 300 series. So if you're using those, go just look up those two CVEs and make sure. If you look them up, it'll tell you how to check your devices to make sure you are or are not vulnerable. And then there's some information about how to fix it effectively. There's no workaround. There's really not a patch. It's just a version upgrade, getting to a certain version depending on your device. So, and then there's another little thing called the Cars Blues. Now, I've heard about this one out at DEF CON last year. I'm not sure if the person that was talking about it was one of the researchers that discovered it or not. But an organization called Privacy for Cars found this thing. And basically, it's a mass security vulnerability in the infotainment systems of many of the vehicles, different models, different brands. Takes only a few minutes. Pretty cheap and easy piece of hardware and software that you can find just about anywhere. And it lets hackers erase personally identifiable information of users who have synced their phones to their cars via Bluetooth. Now, why does that care? Or why would you care? Like, hey, yeah, go ahead. Feel free to erase it, especially like in a rental car that you might have paired with. Well, the hack can be riskier if a user has synced his phone with a vehicle that has been rented, shared through a subscription service, loaned or sold at the end of a lease. And why is that? Because all of that contact info and all the other info that's synced from your phone still resides. So even though the hack was initially meant to say, hey, we can erase stuff, we can also download and copy all of that personally identifiable information that's synced to that car. So now we can get it as hackers and see what we can do with it. So, just pay attention. Bluetooth matters still. And even in the Bluetooth versions, the newer versions, 5, up to 5 at least. But Bluetooth Low Energy 4.0, 4.1, 4.2, and version 5 definitely are affected by a CVE called CVE 2018-7252, and that one's called Bluetooth Low Energy Jacking. Basically, it just allows to jam Bluetooth. Now, okay, how you going to really hurt somebody with that? Cause inconvenience. They can't use their Bluetooth devices. Okay. Somebody might find a more terrible way to use that, but, the bottom line is, if I can jam somebody's Bluetooth, maybe I can cause a trouble. I don't know. It just depends. Some medical devices nowadays are Bluetooth capable. Maybe you could jam a pacemaker or something like that in some way from getting a correct signal. Maybe that's a problem. So just pay attention. There's a lot of stuff going on. Whew, that's a lot, man. Just a few minutes. That's a lot of stuff. The reality here is that there's a lot. As whether you consider yourself, quote, a blue teamer, a red teamer, a purple teamer, white hat, black hat, gray hat. There's so much every day that comes at us from different attack vectors, different demands of the organizations that we work for, different understandings and expectations from non-technical personnel who make the decisions or control the money being spent. How do you, as an IT security person, handle those expectations? How do you, help these other non-IT people make decisions? How do you help them understand how important some of this stuff is? And when you say, hey, the printer is attacking us, how can you say that with a straight face, and not make your boss or your boss's boss think you're an idiot, right? So there's a lot to consider. And there's a lot of different things that we have to figure out what we're going to do about it. So, again, at BYOS Radio on Twitter, I would absolutely love to hear how you are able to get your folks to pay attention and to take it seriously and to put together a program, not just, hey, I need security, which means usually, hey, back up my data, make sure my antivirus and my Windows are up to date, and make sure nothing bad happens to us, right? And no ransomware. And if you get those things all good, then we consider you a successful security person. But there's so much more, as many of us know, and then those that are new to the field are quickly finding out. It's not go grab, Security Plus or any of these other certifications. Even at the beginning of this, I jokingly talk about all the ones I've had, but I've been in the field over 20 years. I call myself a professional hacker since 2008. I've been paid to pen test. I've been paid to hack for that long. Yes, I have a lot of certifications. I was a contractor and a vendor for so long that the companies I worked for would require a certain amount of, MCSEs or CCNAs or ethical hackers or whatever on staff in order to get discounted services and products from the vendors that we bought from. So I would be on one of those teams and they'd say, hey, all right, I know you know how to do it, but now go take the test so that we can get some cheaper rates. So in the end, I ended up with a bunch. Plus, I went to college, and some of my college classes, instead of a traditional paper test where you sit down and take a test, the actual final exam was some sort of certification that you could walk away with. So you walked away with a college degree and a few certifications under your belt as well. My certified incident handler, certified encryption specialist I got through college tests. So it was kind of nice to be able to take those tests and save myself a few $100s a piece and get those with my degree. So, hey, it's good stuff. All right. Well, that's going to be about it for this episode. I'm back. I've been off for a few months. I've had some knee surgeries and life. I took a new job. It allowed me to do some new things, work in a bigger environment. And I just wanted to take some time to really sit back and revisit what security, how it's changed over the last even year. And I wanted to revisit, what I'm doing in security and what frustrates me or what excites me. I went to the last DerbyCon this past summer down in Kentucky, with Mr. Dave Kennedy over at Trusted Sec, and many of his people there, and Ed Scudis and many others who were there to present for the last time in that environment, in that organization, that event. And it was great. The people that I met, not just presenters, but people walking down the hallway, people sitting at the coffee shop, people sitting around in the lobby, kids that seemed like they were 10, and some of these adults that seemed like they were 80. And everybody in between. It was just awesome. And I got to meet so many great people and opportunity to really to see how everybody sees security. Get a chance to hear their perspectives. And it's amazing, that we all get and think, oh, this is what security is. And then we hear what they had to deal with. And you're like, well, that's security too. And that's security. So security is a lot of things, and it's interesting just how many of those things really exist. So to those of you I met at DerbyCon, I absolutely appreciate you, and thank you for spending some time with me and sharing some of your knowledge with me. I got to go to Black Hat and DEF CON this year as well, 2019. So nice. Next year, I think I'm going to go to DEF CON, and I want to go to Wild West Hacking Fest. I want to head up to Michigan. So there's a few new ones. Of course, there are some of the local regional things that I like doing still, Secure World and some of the other smaller, more localized things here in Cincinnati. One of my friends, Mr. Matt, he handles the Cincinnati Security Information Association, Security Information Interest Group, CINPA SIG, CINPA-SIG. We're doing a big 20 Hackers Night 20. That's how I should say that. Comes up in December. It's on meetup.com, based in Cincinnati. Go check it out. Meetup.com, and then CIN as in Nancy, PA. Look for CINPA, and then SIG for Security Interest Group. And Matt organizes that, does a great job, speaks at many events on a nationwide basis. So you probably know who he is. Great guy, great organization. And the people that go there are, again, a wide range of experiences and backgrounds. And, it's just great. I love it. And I appreciate them for having me. And when I'm there, they always interested in talking. Up at UC, the University of Cincinnati, is the Cyber at UC club, and they are awesome. They've got a great partnership going with Cisco. They're building a great team up there, more than, I think, now they're over 30 students. They participate as a team and capture the flags and do some other things. So, and then each as an individual, of course, is a college student focusing something in the IT field, mostly in security, and doing some great work up there too. So that is what I have for this week. I promise some great interviews coming up over the next 5 weeks. I have some interesting folks, actually 2 that will most likely never be named based on what they do and how they do it. But you'll be interested, I think, in hearing the why they do it. Hopefully they'll be very forthcoming. I've been working with them now, not working, but I've been talking with them over various medium and channels to encourage them to agree to come on the show. And, interesting, very, very interesting conversations. So hopefully they will continue to agree to appear, and we'll get their interviews recorded soon. So for myself, for those who have helped me in my career, for those who have been loyal listeners, for those who share, I salute you. I applaud you for the work that you do. I applaud you for taking the time to listen to this podcast and then spreading the word about it. I appreciate that as well. And until I see you again, have a great week. I am Dave the IT Guy. This is Bring Your Own Security Radio.